Hi, this is Meridith Powell, and you know what time it is. It is time for my favorite show of the week, Thrive. That show where we dive into the strategies, discuss the steps, everything that you need to know to turn all of this uncertainty into your greatest competitive advantage. Well, strap on your seatbelts today because I have a great guest for you. I have the Julie Oehlert. She is going to really run us through kind of innovative, disruptive thinking of how to solve some of today's biggest challenges. I don't want to wait another minute. I want to dive in and to talk to today's guest. And Julie, you are labeled as the Chief Brand and Experience Officer for ECU Health, but you are so much more than that. So tell our audience a little bit about you.
So I am the Chief Experience and Brand Officer for ECU Health. That's a really different title because healthcare needs to be disrupted. They need new ways to think about executives and leadership. And so I'm strategically responsible for all things human experience. So patient experience, team engagement, workforce well-being for the health system. Coming out of the pandemic, Meridith, workforce well-being is on my mind. I also run design labs. So I have a design thinking background. So I run design labs. I also have an analytics team. I run the marketing and communication function. But your audience should really think about that as the future of healthcare moves forward is the experience is the marketing. People can't check into your billboard, so they check into your hospital. So experience and marketing is a natural thing that is coming together in healthcare about time, if you ask me. I also have operational responsibility. So I run EVS and food service. That's environmental services and food services. Really, they are hospitality functions in most other businesses, but not so in healthcare always. I have a hospitality and I have experience coordinators, which is another operational group that helps us with the experience of patients and team members. I oversee onboarding because I always say I throw the best party. So I oversee onboarding, welcome day. And then we do, I also have reward and recognition, patient education, and patient family advisors. And I say all that and you think, oh, that's so much. Think about how it works. It works like experience is the brand. The patient and family advisors and patient education inform the experience, which informs the brand. EVS and food service contribute to the experience in the brand. So it kind of all makes sense, but I am kind of a unicorn in this business right now. I have a lot of diverse things that have come together.
Yeah. And you know, what I think is so interesting about that, and I think what's brilliant about the role and everything that you cover is quite frankly, if you only had other pieces of that and not some of it, well, then it would be, the brand would be broken. Right? Because I mean, I think far too often that's what companies don't understand. If the salesperson sells a certain experience and then you walk through the doors of the organization and that experience is different, even in one department, you've broken the brand.
In your book, Thrive, I love when you talk about condition yourself for change and how these places stuck with their vision and their values because those were the drivers. I think some of us didn't have that drive to begin with, because just like you said, if the brand is broken because the experience isn't what you think it is, then how do you continue to advance and grow? How do you get patients to trust you, love you, let you take care of them? I mean, that's what brand is right now in healthcare, right? It's trust, it's faith, it's loyalty to the assurance that you're going to take really good care of them and their loved ones. The pandemic changed us and it's different. It really is different now.
Yeah, you know, I was thinking about this the other day. I was listening to something on the radio, and it was something coming out of our hospital system here in Asheville, North Carolina. And we've been bought by a corporate hospital system, and believe me, they are being bloodied every day in the paper. And I don't know what is valid and what isn't valid. Thank God I haven't been up there. The CEO of the hospital got on the radio and he said something, and I was pulling into a parking space, and I thought, I don't believe that. And then I caught myself and I thought, wow, I mean, we do not trust anything. I mean, I don't know him. I have no experience. but I didn't believe a word he was saying. And I thought, how did we get here? Because I am old enough that when I was growing up and Walter Cronkite came on the news, I believed everything he said. I believed our president, even though now I know I probably shouldn't know. And when the doctor told me something, my mother, we did what the doctor said.
Well, I think we're in a low trust environment now in general. I mean, look at politics, look what's been going on in our nation. I think we're in a low trust environment, but also things that have happened in healthcare, like lack of access, like just how healthcare's kind of been trotted out in the public, and people were told very different things during the pandemic about what was true, what was not true, what was medical, what they could trust. And I think it has just led us to this place where, of course, you'd be like, yeah, I don't know. When you say something, CO, I don't know if I trust you. Now, what I think the solution to this is, I think the solution is in listening to our patients and families. And then when they give us feedback, making that available for everyone.
Yeah.
Because you might not trust the health system, but if you look at like online and you see people giving really good feedback about this provider, this hospital, you're going to be like, okay, those are real people. And I think that's where healthcare can recover some of this, is listening to the voices of their patients and families, and then using that to establish trust in the consumer market.
Yeah.
I mean, that seemed too simple.
No, in fact, I think it's brilliant. Is that I think one of the first steps you've got to realize in creating trust is that if trust is doubted, even if you haven't lost it, I mean, because some of it I just think is mistrust that's rubbed off. You said we're in a low trust environment, is the fact that using others, we listen more to what others say than than what a company is out there saying about themselves. So if you can find a way to use and to leverage that. So a question I've got for you that I'm really kind of fascinated by, because you're a disruptor, and how do you know what to disrupt and when to disrupt?
That was the question I was going to kind of ask you. Anyway, we both have to chat about it.
All right. I'll answer. You go first.
I think that when things don't work and you just look at them through an honest lens, if you have conditioned yourself for change and you look at it through an honest lens, then you're ready to disrupt. Because if you're listening, and oh my God, listening is so important. I'll talk about listening to our team members and our patients all the time. If I'm hearing things and things aren't working, I owe it to think about creating a new way, a different way, not just making it a little bit better, but really disrupting it. So, I think when you hear the stakeholders telling you something's the matter, this isn't working. I mean, I rely a lot as a design thinker. I rely a lot on empathizing for the end users and the stakeholders. If they're telling me that they don't trust me, or my access is poor, or my docs don't listen to them, then I'm on that. And I'm thinking about, how do I make that better? So I think to disrupt when you're listening and you're hearing things. And I think that when I'm going to ask you that back, because I think in some of the companies that you've worked with, they didn't listen.
Oh, completely. One of my favorite parts of Thrive was I started to write the book, and I had done all this research on Brooks Brothers, and they declared bankruptcy, I think in April of 2020. I think that's when it was. And my publisher called me and said, I'm so sorry. And I said, why? And he said, didn't you see Brooks Brothers declare bankruptcy? And I said, yeah. He said, well, you can't put them in the book. I said, I'm putting them in the book. I said, they're a great example of, I never promised these companies would be there. What I promised was the formula worked, and they violated two of the strategies.
Yep.
And I agree with you. The only thing that I would add to what you're saying, because I agree, I think that it's time to disrupt when you're hearing something isn't working in the marketplace. But far too often we limit that to our industry or our company.
Yeah.
And you need to be paying attention to, like, the whole way that I came up with thriving in uncertainty was not because I had some crystal ball and saw that uncertainty was going to be a big topic. I just was listening to my customers in 2016 and 17. Everybody was talking about uncertainty. Yeah. And when you can hear that through line, when you hear it over and over again, because I agree with you, I think far too often we're trying to listen to hear what people say, and you need to listen deeper to hear what isn't being said.
Yeah. And when you talk about Brook Brothers, I really like that story too, because there was an element of hubris in
Oh,
that
such.
I think healthcare does that. There's a level of hubris that says, well, we're just going to do this because we've always done it. I really love tech right now in healthcare and how technology doesn't have to separate us or be cold, but technology can help patients. Today, I was looking at a symptom tracker where you could go on our website and put your symptoms in to see if you really needed to go to the ER or what you needed. Now, I'm listening about that, right? And people and there's hubris because some of the people that maybe run healthcare would say, "Why do we need that online? Why are you
Mm,
doing that?" And it's like, because I have a 20 something that is out there that goes, "Ooh, I have this. Should I go to the ER? How
yeah.
can we help them?" But again, some of the lack of disruption, I think, is just pride and that people can't see it another way because they're so entrenched. And that's what that Brooks Brothers really reminded me of that. Like
Yeah.
when I read that, I was like, wow.
I think ego will be the death of you, right? I mean, I think that I often, say to my clients when we're talking about you can't disrupt. There's another strategy that I use called shed fast and keep moving, where you've got to look at what's working and what isn't working in your organization. And the biggest hassle that I see with people is they can't let go of something because they've always done it that way. And I think I'd be curious because you work in a corporate environment. It's a healthcare corporate environment, but it's impressive that you're a disruptor and an innovator because those are probably some of the most challenging places to disrupt and innovate,
Well,
right?
I think it is because we are healthcare is very entrenched in healthcare, right? And they don't
Yeah.
always think they can learn from others, which I disagree with. You can learn
Oh, you
from
should too, right?
everyone. But I think one of the things that's really important is people feel like change is going to be harmful and it's going to be disruptive in a bad way. But change can be really freeing, really enjoyable, full of hope and joy. And so I pretty much stay in that rebel joyfully with love sort of place where, people will be like, "What do you use for change management?" I'm like, I'll love you through it. Like I'm gonna love you and tell you it's gonna be okay. The other side is right there. It's not, no one's failing in this change. We're all moving. And so I think coming out of the pandemic and as healthcare needs to move, that we have to make sure that people understand that change can be fabulous and exciting, and it doesn't have to be, something that everybody's hunkered down suffering over.
So talk a little bit more, about your work, about your book. Has it come out
Yeah,
yet?
it dropped February 14th, Valentine's Day.
All right, I've got to go. I love that because it is all about love
Yeah.
and caring. I've got to go order my copy, and I can't wait to read it. But
Uh,
it really is this holistic approach to disrupting, but you do it with love and human caring. And in fact, when I read about you, when I study about you, so much of what you say or is written about you is written with words like love, caring, humanization, not things we typically find in corporate environments, organizations, even
yeah.
quite frankly in healthcare anymore.
Yeah. Or change transformation. Change
Yeah,
transformation can have a feel of uh, anxiety
sure.
associated with it. So I wrote this book called System Innovation, a holistic approach to disrupting with love and human caring. And there's a couple really important words in there. The one is holistic. So healthcare, like other businesses, because they're large, have become really siloed. And so you've got somebody working on patient experience here and somebody working on team engagement here and somebody doing operations here and somebody doing quality here, and all of the human things drive everything else. And so unsiloing the work is really important for healthcare to survive, because
Mm,
if I don't think that patient experience and brand are driven by team member engagement, which is driven by environment and workplace safety, then I'm not paying attention.
mm.
So unsiloing the work is really important, and that's work that I love to do. And then the other thing is that to really bring innovation and disruption to the place it should be, which is a joyful human endeavor. Humans always want to make things better.
Yeah.
Humans don't, no human comes to work and goes, I want to be mediocre today and disappoint a doctor and a patient. Nobody. And they want to make a difference, and they want purpose, and they want to live their values, and they want to be in a place they can get excited about. And that's where I want innovation and disruption to live. And I think just shedding that other stuff and just saying, you know what, this is a great time in healthcare. Never waste a good crisis. Disrupt, create new, beautiful things for patients and for team members, and watch all your other outcomes follow.
Are there parts of when you think about disruption, when you think about things that you need to focus on that are natural levers, so to speak, that if you focused your energy there and you could disrupt and figure out how to make that process work, it would impact others?
I think I know what you're asking. So, and maybe if I don't, then redirect me. But I think if we focus on empathy for the end user and look at what the friction points are for patients, that everything will follow. So right now in healthcare, access is a big issue.
Yeah.
And so access is a big issue. So what are we doing about it? And then are we really just going to try to open more clinics and get more physicians? Because that might not work. But are we looking at virtual care? Are we looking at different levels of care for different patient types? Are we looking at being able to offer group appointments? Are we looking at meeting patients where they are if they can't travel? You know, can you look at access in the 90,000 ways that we should be looking at access? And then do we ask the patients, did you really need this? Or did you need something else? I mean, when I think about primary care right now, I don't think about doctor visits as much as I think about transportation, food deserts, education, sport, exercise. And so again, I think if you're listening, that's the point, right? And so I think when you find out and empathize with the end user, that is one of the levers that will tell you where to go to disrupt. If you don't care what the end users say, then, then I don't know why you're running any business. But I mean, some people don't want to listen to the end user. We just talked about it.
And the point is, you won't be here, right?
Right.
I mean, because somebody will listen to the end user and figure it out. I mean, it's one of the beautiful things I love about business is that if you don't change, somebody else will figure it out, and somebody else, will take care of it. But one thing that I think about healthcare that so mimics the business world where I live, it is in a mindset of reaction rather than in a mindset of proactivity. And I find in the world that we have got to succeed in today, proactive is where you need to live. I think about healthcare and I think about the fact that typically I can't get what I need until I'm sick versus maybe, if I monitored my blood pressure or something, we could keep my blood pressure from going through the roof or something like that. I'm curious about the work or the thought process around that, because I think that I think we are wired almost as human beings. I'm not sure if it's socialization, but I don't worry about my health until I'm fat and it impacts my heart. I don't worry about my business until it's in trouble. I don't try to drive sales until I don't have any customers. I mean, we live in a very reactive way.
And I think healthcare is one of the most regulated businesses in the world. I mean, we are so heavily regulated. And so how do we still have a business model where we can make enough money to survive and do it in a proactive way? And that's like, you could do 5 shows on that, right? Because we still have a sickness model where we make the bulk of our money on people who are sick. And so how do we start to rethink that? And I think healthcare is doing that, but disrupting those payment models is really challenging.
Oh, yeah.
There are people that are very committed to the way that we used to have those payment models that we still do, right? But to your point, when you think about access, because you're an innovator too, I think about, well, we wouldn't need access if people were really healthy.
Right.
And they don't have to come to see the doctor if all they need to do is see the nutritional.
Right.
All they need to do is have to go to because here in North Carolina, food deserts are a real thing. They can go to food pharmacy, and so why don't we have more food pharmacies? Because then people wouldn't have obesity issues, and then people wouldn't have hypertension. And so again, I think that's the whole disruption in healthcare that I'm really excited about. And I think we're starting it, but as you know, those
Yeah.
business models, they just hang on. If people are making money from it, they're hanging on to it.
Yeah, I was going to say it's probably some of the biggest place that the hubris is there, right? I mean, the ego, because the ego is really sitting in a place of fear that you can't do away with the model because then you would do away with my job. I know as I build succession plans in organizations, probably one of the biggest challenges I've got is convincing a leader that you need to develop somebody to do that job who's better than you. The ego won't let that go there. You know what I mean? Because then people start to get a level of fear of what will I be doing? Well, the problem with that is if you don't develop people coming behind you to be better than you, the organization can't grow. And it's the same thing. Like these models will keep healthcare stuck. And until those models change, healthcare really can't progress. Because I heard that statistic the other day that the obesity level is higher than it's ever been. And they were really talking about a lot of lack of access to food. And living in North Carolina, like you, I thought the same thing. I thought, wow, during the Great Depression, people didn't realize they were poor because they grew everything, right? But we're so far away from those models.
Right. And so we need to create new models, and
Right.
we can do that if we listen to the communities. Like
Right.
they'll tell us what they need if we just would listen. And then we really have to innovate our payment models.
Yeah.
We have to work with our state and federal governments to innovate models that make sense to keep people healthy for the future, not
Right.
just do the 5 or 6% of people that need really, really sick care. I think healthcare is really exciting right now.
Yeah.
It can be crazy, but I think it's exciting because I think that we are in a disruption place where
Yeah.
we're like, we're not being successful. Patients don't trust us. Our team members are burned out. They don't like working in healthcare. I mean, how many nurses left healthcare? I mean, North Carolina is one of the top countries for the nursing shortage. So like, who's going to take care of people if you don't have
Right.
nurses? Well, why won't people go into nursing? We got to unwrap that. If their mom comes home or dad comes home and they're a nurse and they talk about a unfavorable, sad environment, who's gonna work in health?
Right.
So again,
Right.
that's why the whole holistic unsiloing that work is really going to be pivotal for us, so that we can understand the big picture of all this and all the things that are connected.
Yeah, and I think what's so interesting is I do think it's a time not to be siloed because that everything that you're talking about is going on in healthcare. I was just listening to a book as I was driving to Statesboro, Georgia, the other day that was about the military, and the military is going through the same. They can't get the recruits. They can't do what they need to do. Most of the industries that I work in, and I love when you said a disruption state, because I think of a disruption state as we're at the edge of the cliff. Like there's no more land, right? Like you cannot go any further. So you either go over or you change.
I think that the people that are going to do that change are the millennials
Yeah.
and the generation below them. They're the Z's, because they have a zero tolerance for the crazy of healthcare. Like, I spent North Carolina Student Nurse Association. I was with them last weekend, and I'm just telling you, if we turn over the reins to them, some stuff is going to get fixed. Some stuff we might not like it, but some stuff is going to get changed because they have zero tolerance.
They won't tolerate it.
No.
Julie, it is hard to believe, but we are at the end of this podcast. I always like to close with two questions. What is your biggest piece of advice for anybody looking to disrupt or innovate in their industry? Where would you tell them to start? And the second is, how do people find out about you? How do they find out about your book? We'll make sure your book's in the show notes and get that promoted, but both of those.
Okay. So what would my advice be is, first of all, say yes. Say yes to when people ask you to do something different or special or take on a department. If you're a leader listening to this, say yes. I say yes all the time to things, a project. I say yes, because once it's in my hands, I can do something with it. So say yes. And then the other thing is listen with empathy to understand. If we have more empathy, we'll create more change, because humans ultimately don't want humans to suffer. So have empathy, wear your empathy in the boardroom. It's okay. It's okay. Wear your empathy in the boardroom, listen, and then say yes.
Oh, I love that. I love that. And then how do people find out about you? Because you really need to follow her work. I mean, Julie is as delightful as she has been on this podcast today, but just a wealth of information. And I got to have you back because I don't even feel like we've scratched the surface.
Well, healthcare, like we could talk about healthcare forever. As a business, it's crazy. So my book is on Amazon. It's also a textbook, and so you can buy it on Cognella. It's a healthcare leadership companion book. So you can get it in either of those places. And you can ping me on LinkedIn. You can also ping me at ECU Health. That's where I spend my time as the Chief Experience and Brand Officer. So those are places you can find me. I do speak once in a while, and I write. So you can Google me. I publish different articles on a variety of things. But you know, when you're in the trenches and when you're working all the time, that's about as much as you can do, right? Because you're in it. So
Because you're in it, but that's what makes your work so relevant and so powerful because it isn't theory. I mean, you're living it day in
yeah,
and day out. But
yeah.
Julie, thank you so much for today. You have been an amazing guest, just an enlightening conversation. And I am enjoying uh, forging the friendship and the like-mindedness for the work that we do. So again, thank you so much for being here. Thank you to all of you for joining us for another episode of Thrive. We'll see you right back here next week for another episode, but look for more on Julie, her work, and everything that you can learn to disrupt and innovate your industry.